Hello and welcome back to Chatbot and Rogue Republic with me, Josh or Riku. Today we have a very special guest because I am joined by Samantha van der Sluis, or Sam, who is an amazing composer and has worked on some absolutely phenomenal projects. Hello, Sam.
Hi, it's so good to talk with you today.
Oh, and you. I've been really excited about this interview because you've worked on some amazing projects. You're working on a load of really awesome stuff yourself. And I've been excited to talk about these kind of things, really.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So we'll start with the kind of the big overarching broad question, because you have worked in film and television and video games as a composer or as part of the music department and stuff, which is, you know, as someone who loves music and learned music growing up and stuff, that's kind of like, you know, that's always the dream job. As a young musician, you're like, I'm going to write, I don't know, I'm going to work on a Star Wars film, for example, or a Disney movie, or, you know, a big show like The Mandalorian, which you have done.
Yeah.
How did you how did you get into working or in music for kind of like film, television, and gaming? Because that's just amazing.
Yeah, so it was like a bunch of opportunities at once presented to me, as well as who I knew. So for example, I went to college in Ireland, and I made a contact with my professor there, and he had this deal going on where his students could stay in Los Angeles for 1 month. And I was like, yeah, I'm on board with that. So I went to LA, and then funnily enough, another professor was in LA just during while I was staying there, and he's like, oh, hey, to all my past students who I've taught before, do you guys want to catch up? He's taught at many different schools, so it was all people I had never met before. And I went there and I actually met my now husband, Riley Hughes.
Wow.
And he was there, and he worked in the music department already for these big films. And I was telling him how I'm also a musician, I'm trying to get my foot in the door, and we hit it off as friends really well. And so he put my name in. When I actually applied through email to this company, they put my email in the trash, like, you know, just clearing the inbox, like, we don't need a new intern or whatever. But then my husband saw that, my now husband, who was my friend back then, he saw my email in the trash and he put it right back into inbox, and then they actually read it. So it was just like, just this charts.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's like, that must be a lovely story to kind of just like reminisce with your husband, to just be like, ah!
Yeah, like, thanks to you, like, I'm here and we're married. Yeah. So he played a big part in helping me get my foot in the door, and I made many new contacts and friends and colleagues, and we all just kind of help each other. And yeah, that's how I basically got in. It was through my efforts of wanting to come here and trying my best to meet new people, as well as a bit of luck.
Oh, that's amazing. And to be fair, like, it is a very difficult industry to get into, isn't it?
It really
any
is.
Creative industry, it's like, banging your head against a brick wall at times. Actually having someone on the inside that can actually help is so beneficial at times.
It really is. Yeah. And things are changing as well. So like, this was about 5 years ago that this happened. And nowadays, since the pandemic and a lot of things are remote and online, I wouldn't say coming to LA is like the best option anymore, because you can kind of work from anywhere.
Yeah. I know that kind of like from my own personal experience as well, I kind of like, we've been told by lecturers and stuff during my master's course that actually don't look at location as I need to move to this place, because the pandemic has changed the whole landscape of the creative industry, especially when you're looking at film, television, and gaming, that actually companies now actually saying, well, actually, you downsize the office space. Most people can still work from home as long as they've got the appropriate setup and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of nice to have someone who works in the industry, not just lecturers at university, saying you don't have to move to LA to work on these things, because you can do it from home.
Yeah, back in college, all my professors said you have to be in LA. And maybe it's a bit of both, maybe like visit LA just to find some new contacts, but otherwise, like, things are pretty remote. My husband and I are thinking of moving out of LA temporarily, because it's just so expensive to live here. Yeah.
Oh, I bet as well. Yeah. I kind of, a couple of years ago, I perused and was thinking about moving over there, and I looked at housing prices. I was like, how much?
Yeah, well, it's gone up. Yeah. Rent as well, like not
Oh,
just houses. Oh gosh,
yeah,
yeah.
it was across the board, because I was thinking, oh, our house is worth this much in Britain. How much would it be worth in LA? Or how much would that get us in LA? I was like, oh, a
Yeah.
studio apartment.
Yeah, and then the currency exchange,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, as I mentioned at the start, you've been part of the music department for, like, some of the biggest films that have come out in the last 5 or 6 years. Just to kind of reel off a handful. You were part of the music department for Star Wars 9. You were part of the music department for Endgame, the Avengers film. You worked on Frozen 2, Toy Story 4. You've also worked on TV shows like The Orville, The Mandalorian, and The Simpsons, and Family Guy, just to name but a few, along with some other projects where you've worked as a composer in terms of film, and you've also done some composing for some video games as well. What is it like to work as part of a music department on these like massive, big budget blockbuster movies? Because that must just feel at times completely surreal.
Yeah, it's great because my IMDb looks very professional now. So yeah, I do work in the music department for the bigger films. I'm not the lead composer, and I just play a small part in like a massive music department. We basically like prepare recording sessions with sheet music for the musicians and stuff like that. Sometimes we do a bit of orchestrations to help flesh out the score of the piece, because composers will send out just their MIDI file that we'll need to orchestrate. Yeah, so it is really fun being a part of that. And it's also a bit challenging at times because I need to balance out, working as my day job, I suppose, in the music department, and then coming home to compose on my own projects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that must at times be kind of like quite a, mildly brain melting experience, because you're in one set of mindset of working on these things, then you come home and you're like, right, different type of creative approach now.
Yeah, exactly. And then sometimes like you're just really tired and you're just like, no, this is going to be worth it later.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that completely. That kind of feel of like, I've had a really long day at the office and I've now got to work on my own project, which I love and are going to be amazing, but I just kind of want to sit on the couch and watch TV tonight.
Yeah, that was me yesterday. Yeah.
Oh my God, amazing. So kind of obviously, you've worked as a composer for some films as well. You did the overture for Starspawn. You've worked on things like Killer Night Shift, Felix, Landfall, and Day Off. But you've also composed some stuff for some games. So you were the composer for Cloud Score and Love Ghosty. And you've also done the music for the Burrow trailer as well. Is there a difference between working on music for kind of like film and television, be it like these big blockbuster, big budget kind of projects where you're part of a department, or these smaller scale films where you're working as a composer on your own, to working as a composer in video games? Because obviously kind of there are some people out there that say it's pretty much the same thing. There are other composers that say actually you need to be a little bit different when you're approaching game compared to film. What's your kind of take on that? Do you think there is a big difference between those, or do you think there's a lot of similarities?
A bit of both. I would say there is, like, it's two completely different ball games. Like, so with film and TV, you get, a set amount of time, a scene, you have locked footage to score to, and it must be exactly 3 minutes and 2 seconds of the scene that's playing out. But in a game, you don't know what the player is going to do. Are they going to pause and just like AFK? Are they going to take 10 minutes in this level, or are they just going to speed run through it? So creating music for games, also you don't really have any footage. You have inspiration of pictures, concept art that the developers will send you, but otherwise it's just you and the music, and you just have to kind of imagine what the world will feel like, what the character's feeling, if it's like maybe a cinematic or a dramatic scene, for instance. So it is very different. I did a lot of my studies growing up in music for film. And so I've actually just ventured to video games the past year. And so I'm much more familiar in film than I am in games, and I'm learning so much every day. And then there's stuff like adaptive music, interactive music, and looping in games. And so I have to, or I feel mostly at times I need to be as confident in that as I am with films. Otherwise, I'm not going to get hired, right? So it's like,
Absolutely.
oh, wait, yeah. So it's a, yeah, I would say it's just two different fields, fields of careers. And yeah, it feels different to me, but I very much prefer composing for video games. I just love creating like world building and atmosphere building, sometimes as opposed to scoring a scene.
Yeah, I suppose as well, actually, with that, with gaming, like you say, it sounds like you've got a lot more creative freedom than you necessarily do with a scene in a movie, because like you say, if your scene's 3 minutes and 2 seconds, that's all you have to score for. Whereas on a video game, like you say, you've got to think about the player and whether they're going to be in this big area for a long time or whether it's just going to be a short sequence and stuff. And that must be really quite nice from a composing perspective, actually, to have a little bit more freedom in this, kind of, you get these assets from a developer where they're like, oh, and here's some concept artwork or some early screenshots for the scene, or here's a section of the narrative to kind of get the general vibe for this area and stuff, to kind of just be like, oh, I've got creative freedom to kind of like within the kind of what they've provided me to work on what I want. That must be really nice.
Yeah, it actually depends, I suppose, on the person as well, because my husband, he works in music as well, and he's like he's much more comfortable in films, and he would much rather have an image, like a video to score to. If I was like, oh, here's a game loop that you need to score, he'll be like, oh my gosh, where do I start? The limitless options sometimes can be overwhelming. Yeah.
Absolutely. But and like you say, it comes down to individuals as well, really, doesn't it? Because obviously when you're working in creative fields, everyone has a different approach to writing things and to creating these kind of like these things and stuff. Kind of, out of curiosity, what is your kind of creative process really when you're kind of approaching kind of like, do you have your film and television creative process and then your writing for games creative process, or is it kind of the creative process is the same but the approach differs?
Yeah, I would say the creative process is similar. Obviously I'll get like ideas, whether that be a script or concept art to me, and then I'll look up a lot of different references, not just music references, but like images from like maybe where the location is, like Indonesia. I'm working on a game kind of based on an Indonesian island, so I'm looking at a lot of Indonesian things right now. Yeah, but I work, like I usually sing. I'm a terrible singer, like absolutely, like it's really embarrassing, and every time I hear someone sing well near me, I just cry a little inside because I can't do that. But I'll sing into my mobile and just record myself. I've got a couple of ideas for games now, and I just listen back and I'm like, oh, I have to keep listening to this, but it's an idea that I've got. So I'll do a lot of that, because singing is so freeing as opposed to working on the computer. Like definitely improvising on the piano is great, but I feel like singing can just like do so many things in the moment, whereas playing an instrument, sometimes you'll need, you need the technique to play it, whereas singing, you can just like, okay, I know what I'm trying to do here, and put that into the DAW or the sheet music or whatever. So yeah, I do a lot of singing, embarrassingly enough.
I mean, kind of when I've approached kind of like songwriting and melody writing and stuff as well, I find often that singing is a lot more, you don't have to worry about anything else. You can be like, weirdly, the other day I was in my car driving down a motorway in the UK, and I was like, oh, that melody is really good, whacked my indicators on, pulled into a lay-by, and then just sung into my phone looking like a madman at the side of this freeway in the UK with always this truck driver was like sat behind me going, what the hell is that man doing? Is he singing?
Oh yeah.
But it's quite nice because you could be like, oh, that's a minute, but you grab the phone, record that, put the phone down and be like, right, cool, I can crack on with my day because I've got that melody. And then you go home and you can analyze it, and you can be like, oh, actually that bit was good, but I didn't quite like that bit, let's tweak that bit and stuff. So it's quite freeing. I do sing on occasions. I've listened to some of my recordings back and gone, oh Christ, that was pitchy.
Oh, yeah.
But it's quite and like you say, it's quite it's it's useful to be able to do that actually.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I'm not a singer, but it's faster than writing it down, like even if you're writing music notes really quickly, but you get home and then you're like trying to decipher your notes. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. That kind of brings me on to my next question, because obviously in prepping for this, I kind of, I did a little bit of research and stuff, and kind of, you have obviously a huge passion for music, and stuff, but you're also you're quite passionate about things like pixel art and illustration, and obviously playing video games. Do you ever kind of like sit there on the rare occasions you get some free time, because I can imagine you're incredibly busy, but just kind of like merge those things together? Like, have you ever done like a piece of like pixel art or an illustration or something, and then just kind of like gone, oh, just for fun, just created like a short melody or something that kind of goes with that? Have you ever linked those up?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So on my Twitter, I've got a few up there, like where I do a pixel art piece and then I animate it, and then I'll put music to it. It just adds a little bit more, interest for your followers to look at. But it's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to put yourself out there, express things, as well as market yourself or market your brand. So unfortunately, this is just how it is, but like with art, like visual art, it's just easy for us to look at and like, because it's just instant. We're instantly looking at it. Whereas if we were to just put up music or audio, we have to sit, the audience has to sit and listen to it. And so it's not instant, it's linear time being spent. So if I can kind of merge the two by making a video with my art or whatever, and then put music over it, then it's kind of like, I don't want to say hitting two birds with one stone. And there's a phrase I heard. What was it? Feeding two birds with one scone.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, the scone is I think it's the American pronunciation, because back in Australia we say scone.
Yeah, it's in Britain, it's weird. Different parts of the country say it differently. Like some people say scone, some people say, some people say scone in the UK. They're normally your upper echelons, fancy hoity-toity people, whereas the majority of us just say scone.
Scone, yeah. So it doesn't really work like feeding two birds with one scone, but
not quite the same ring.
Yeah, but so yeah, it's a great way to put yourself out there and have eyes on your work, because sometimes, not everyone, myself included, doesn't want to sit and listen for 5 minutes or spend time. You might be busy, you might just be scrolling really quick. So it's a great way to have people engage with your work.
I suppose it's also that kind of linking in, because obviously, like you say, with visual art and stuff, it's more passive. You can scroll, you scroll through your Twitter feed, you see GIFs, you see memes, you see, someone's dropped a TikTok video, whatever on earth TikTok is. Still not sure at this point in my life. But the active bit is the kind of, with music, you do sit there and you do listen to it. But if you can merge the two, you've then got that visual thing. So someone can be like, oh, that's quite cool. And it's like a 30-second snippet of a melody. And someone can be like, oh, I really like that melody. That's really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
That's quite a nice kind of way of thinking about it, actually. So kind of thinking more broadly, because you've worked on these big projects with some absolutely huge names in music for film and television, based on kind of like, the people that we've kind of meant, the projects you worked on at the start. Do you have any kind of like good, interesting, funny anecdotes from some of those bigger projects, like where you working on Star Wars 9 and John Williams said here's a MIDI track, and then he sent it over and went no, 2 days later he's gone, oh no, I've changed my mind, I don't like that one, that one's out, this one's in, that sort of thing. Then you've been like halfway through the sheet music going, oh my god, would you just make your mind up?
Yeah, first of all, John Williams doesn't work with MIDI.
Actually, that makes sense, to be fair.
Yeah, he hand sketches all of his scores. So he'll send us the hand sketch, and then we'll have to make the notation through like Finale or Sibelius or whatever. So yeah, actually in any John Williams film, so like Star Wars, for instance, all of us working on his scores are trying to work like covering the score, because he'll write what's happening in the scene and we don't want Star Wars to be spoiled for us. So and it's really nice what he does as well, because in the newest Star Wars, Daisy Ridley plays Rey, and I think he he forgets that her character name is Ray, so he'll usually write Daisy, or they're good friends, and it's just so sweet. So it's always like Daisy takes her lightsaber out. But yeah, so we're trying to, you know, like hide what is happening while trying to work on the music.
That must be one of those things where you're just kind of like, curiosity is kind of edgy. You going, oh, go on, we want to know what happens. You're like, absolutely not. We're not having this film spoiled for us. You just see the word Star Destroyer, and you're like, nope, don't want to know.
Yeah, like even the title of you know, the music cue is sometimes like, oh, what's happening in here? Like, I am your father. What? But yeah, I think another memorable moment, well, more personally for me rather than like a funny anecdote or whatever, is working on Avengers Endgame. I got to play a slightly bigger role in that.
Wow.
So I did some of the mock-ups for that, because what happens is Alan Silvestri will work in his drawer on his computer, and he'll send us the MIDI, and the director wants to hear how it will sound before they record it, because as you know, recording sessions are super expensive. So he just wants to approve it before it gets recorded. So it's up to us then to mock it up realistically on the computer with all the, you know, instruments, and make it sound as real as possible, as if real people are playing it, and then send it back to Alan, who will then show his director and stuff. So I got to play a role in the mock-up team for that, and that was really cool. We got to see some footage, and it wasn't complete footage. It was like, you know, green screens everywhere. So that was just a really cool moment. Yeah.
Oh, that must be absolutely incredible, actually, to work on those mock-ups, because you must just sit there, have that initial file that Alan Silvestri's done, and then adding all these different layers that you're adding to it, just being like, oh my God, this is giving me chills. And then you're sitting there looking at the footage going, and I know what scene this is. And then you must be, have you ever sat there in the cinema on a scene and just gone, I worked on this?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I did some mock-ups for the Orville TV show as well. And we actually have that playing on in the background all the time because our birds love it. So I have pet birds, and they birds love background noise, and it can't be, you know, it needs to be consistent noise. And so Orville is actually like a kind of comedic sci-fi show, so it's very lighthearted, and the music's great. The
music's brilliant. It's got very kind of like Star Trek-y kind of vibes, some of the musical phrasing and stuff in it. I was watching it with my partner the other week, and I was like, you could literally just pick this music up and whack it in like an episode of Star Trek Voyager, and it would still make sense.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So my birds watch it all the time, and I'm just walking in and out of the room, and then I hear like, I remember this part. I like recognize the music. Yeah.
That must be amazing. I mean, to be fair, my chinchillas, I've got 2 pet chinchillas, and
oh my God.
They're adorable. They're the same. They just enjoy watching the telly. If the TV's not, so if we're like having a chilled evening where we're like listening to music and stuff, the chinchillas will like their water, because of where their kind of houses, they'll sit at their water bowl staring at the TV like, why is there nothing on it?
Put the TV on, Dad.
Yeah, it is literally that. It's just like, Dad, why is the TV not on? And I'm like, put something on mute. And then they sit there and go, okay, cool. And then one of them literally just sits on a perch watching the telly. I could be playing video games. I could be watching, you know, cartoons, or, you know, kind of like drama and stuff. They really like sci-fi as well.
Oh, great. Yeah, they get engaged. Yeah.
They were like, when we were watching The Mandalorian last year, they literally were just sat there, both of them were like gripped by The Mandalorian. I was like, sure, you're actually chinchillas and not just teeny people in fursuits.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's amazing. So thinking about, because obviously a huge project, but you've also worked on some where you've been the composer and stuff. Kind of, what have been some of your favorite projects to work on? Not kind of like one specifically. Obviously, like I can imagine working on the mock-ups for Endgame must be quite kind of like up there as a kind of like general kind of like, not just a kind of like work thing, but a general life experience thing. Just being like, I got to work on mock-ups on this. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Kind of, what have been some of your sort of favorite kind of projects that you have worked on?
Yeah, so firstly, in the music department, I love anything animated. So I'm actually not a huge Marvel fan. So I don't really watch a lot of these movies, nor do I mind if it gets spoiled for me as I work on them. But sometimes my colleagues and I will go to the cinema and watch one of the movies we worked on together, and then the credits will roll and we're cheering when we see, you know, our company or our names pop up, and just everyone else must be like, what the heck? But that's a really fun, cool moment when we get to do that. But I would say the projects that I'm super passionate about are the ones where I compose music. So specifically the video games, like the video games I'm working on, I love working on wholesome, cute, you know, casual kind of games. And those are the games I'm working on now. So Cloudscape, Love Ghosty, and another one which I haven't updated my website is Petite Island. So I have to
I've seen some
that.
stuff on that on Twitter. It looks really lovely.
Yeah. So I'm just like super like happy and honored that I get to work on these cool projects. And Chris, the developer for Cloudscape, I think his background also came from film, where he was working a lot in Nickelodeon, and then he's moved on to game design and creating his own game. And so we're kind of similar in making that transition together. But yeah, it's really fun. Like, I just love games. I love when it's like, okay, now we need you to make spring music, or now this world is the, you know, the Stone Island world or whatever. So it's like a more mechanical anvils kind of, yeah. And it's just so fun to work with different instruments that I don't normally get to work with. So Petite Island is the Indonesian inspired island game. And so I'm looking at gamelan, you know, the Indonesian music and stuff like that, Balinese traditional instruments. And it's just so fun. Like, normally I don't get to do this. And it's, so I really love working on the game projects. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, to be fair, and, you know, that's kind of one of the reasons that we reached out. We wanted to get this interview because obviously, you know, working in, you know, film and television is amazing. Obviously, we are predominantly a gaming channel, but, you know, and game music in games, from a personal perspective, is always, I always find, has to be really central to the design process.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got some friends that disagree, and they're like, no, the music comes later. I'm like, no, my thoughts has always been like, you know, music and narrative, gaming kind of needs to merge, and with level design, and the three kind of like need to come together to create this really specific feel for players. Because obviously, you know, it's not a movie, you don't sit there and absorb it, you're engaged and immersed and stuff, and having all that stuff must be really awesome. And there was a train of thought that went away.
No, music can be an afterthought for some clients. Specifically, I found in the film process, like, I had a filmmaker reach out the other day and ask, we made a movie, can you do the music? We need it by April, And I say, like, oh, I'm booked until July. Like, I won't be able to work on this. I'll have to like double my rate. And so it just didn't work out. So I was a little disappointed that he didn't involve me from the start. Like, when you get the crew, you should also, same with the game developers, when you know, hire your staff, maybe you don't need music right away, but you want to secure the composer at least, because otherwise they might not be available later on.
Right, exactly. And, you know, and it's always, I've always found it's really easy to tell where music has been a bit of an afterthought in the development of, you know, films, television, and gaming, because you kind of sit there and go, the music doesn't quite match up to the tone.
So
you just kind of
I don't always blame, you know, the music makers and composers in that, because sometimes it does come from a director thought. Like, you know, they fall in love with maybe the temp music, so it's too close to like this John Williams thing, and then the rest of the, you know, the consumers will blame, like, oh, so and so copies so and so, but it's, you never know what's going on behind the scenes, what the vision is and whose idea and what changed. So
exactly. And, you know, directors, speaking from personal experience, can literally flip ideas on a coin flip, really. One day it's, we're gonna go for this, and then a day later they're like, I've changed my mind, I want to do this instead, and you just kind of sit there and go, do we Okay.
Yeah, and the footage changes, even if it's by a second. It's like, oh my gosh, like the composer freaks out about that. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. So thinking back to kind of like projects and stuff, what have been kind of challenging projects, both for, not necessarily challenging in the negative sense, but just kind of like projects that you've looked at and gone, oh, that's a bit of a beast that I've got to tame, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think every project I work on has been a challenge. I mean, in its different ways. So every project, speaking from personal experience, there's always a touch of self-doubt and imposter syndrome that come up. Like, oh, can I do this? Is my music good enough? Does it sound legit? Are people just going to be like, whoa, what's wrong with this music here? Like all these thoughts. But then I find the game projects, which I love, is challenging because there's just so many tracks that need to be written in so many different styles, and it all needs to be consistent with the game's music palette, like the instruments you use and stuff like that. So it's all fun, but it all comes with its own challenges. Sometimes writing music for film is tricky, especially if you don't really love the project you're working on. Like there's gotta be, it's hard to sometimes find the passion for what you're working on, and hard to kind of reflect that. Like every project kind of comes with its challenges, no matter how much you love it or how much you're excited for it. Yeah,
no, I completely get that. And actually, going back to the kind of point you made about being passionate about the project, and if it's a project you're not kind of like too keen on, it's a lot of people kind of overlook how important passion for the project is when you're being creative, because it's hard to, if you don't like a job, it's difficult sometimes to get out of bed and go and do the job. If you're working on a really big project for months on end that you're not passionate about, that can seem like a bit of a grind at times. And I can imagine that's
definitely.
kind of a bit like getting to that point where you listen to something and you go, I'm sure that will be fine, and then part of you is just like, no, we need to listen to it again. We don't like this, but we need to listen to it again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, music composing is still a job, and no matter how much you love your job, there's always parts of it that kind of suck. Yeah.
Which is true of anything creative, to be fair.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think a bit more broadening out. What would be for you your dream project to work on? Is there a specific, because obviously you've talked about how you really love doing the kind of like the composing and stuff for video games. Is there like a dream project or a franchise out there that you look at and go, I would love to write the music and compose the music for that franchise or a style of game?
Yeah, so I grew up loving animated films, so I would say like a Disney Pixar short film I would love that, especially since short films don't really have a lot of dialogue, and so it plays out the music really well. And then this might sound cheesy, but the game projects I'm on right now are like exactly what I've been looking for, working like for a game. I'm just like bedazzled at the art style and the designers and the developers and how nice they all are. And it's just like, wow, this is such a, friendly space to work in, and a very passionate place as well. And so I would love to continue doing these wholesome, cozy, cute games.
Definitely. And to be fair, like, wholesome, cute, stylized games they're just lovely.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention Animal Crossing as well. Like
I love Animal
Crossing, so Nintendo stuff. Yeah.
I mean, if anyone at Nintendo is watching this, get in touch with Sam. Her contact details are going to be down in the comment section below. So get in contact and say to her, "Do you want to work on Animal Crossing?"
The next Animal Crossing game.
That would be amazing, to be fair, to be able to work on that.
Then we'll be having another interview a few years later. Yeah,
exactly. A couple of years time, we'll have another chatbot where we'll get you back on to talk about how music's going on Animal Crossing. Oh, that would be amazing. So obviously you've had the opportunity to work with, some of the absolute powerhouses in terms of music, Alan Silvestri, Christoph Beck, and obviously the legend that is John Williams. From a composing perspective, is there any, and it can be either of those three or just anyone out there composer wise that you look at and think, I would love to collaborate with them, not kind of like, not in the same way that you've done whilst you've been part of the music department, but actually like properly composing wise collaborate with on a project?
Yeah, I don't think any of the guys up there would maybe be down to collaborate with me, especially because they work alone. I mean, anyone would say John Williams. Like, even if I could just do like one note in his score, like I did that note. So I'm gonna go for a more realistic, idealistic approach here and say my husband and my colleagues. So my husband, as I mentioned, is a musician as well, a composer. And we did recently just finish a project together for a podcast that will be coming out later on. It's called Otter Space. So it features, like the animal otters and about otters in space. So we worked on that together, but it was so fun. I'd like to work with them more, and my colleagues as well. I see them on Twitter, online, and I just go like, how are you not like more well known? This is amazing. Like, these guys are like, and gals are super like at what they do. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And
yeah,
I mean, I know kind of, I've been looking kind of like through your Twitter, and kind of like from there I've had to look at like some other people, and there are so many incredibly talented people that who I look at and just think, why is your name not like bigger than this? Because it's just, oh
yeah,
brilliant. I mean, my last question, which I normally ask, but we've kind of answered it already, is what projects are you kind of currently working on? But we talked about that, but I am going to ask you anyway, just kind of like, bookend my show with what I normally ask. So what projects are you currently working on, in case anyone's just skipped through to the end?
So currently right now I'm working on 3 game projects. The first one is Cloudscape, and it's like a life simulator, survival, build your own island, in a sense, a mixture of Zelda and Animal Crossing, I would say. And then I'm also working on Love Ghosty, which is a very casual, cozy matchmaking game where you play as a ghost, and you like, I suppose, trick or surprise people into getting to, well, people, they're like they're plant people and animal people, and you surprise them into getting matched together and going on dates by like secretly leaving them presents and saying it's from someone else, and it's adorable. Like, oh, that's so sweet. Yeah. And then the other project I'm working on is Petite Island, and you play as a cat called Lily, and she's visiting the island where her grandfather grew up, and it's like Pokemon Snap. It's a photo exploration game. Yeah.
Nice. That sounds really nice.
Yeah.
Gorge. Well, Sam, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was a lot of fun, and a good reason to wake up early.
I was going to say, because at the moment, for people that are watching this at home, it is currently at the time of recording, Sam has got up before 7 a.m. to appear on this chatbot, which is very humbling for me, and I'm really grateful.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So obviously, Sam, you are available on the internet. Where can people find you? Obviously, there'll be links in the description below, but where, for the people that don't bother looking at our descriptions, can people find you?
Yeah, so I have a website, and it's going to be hard to spell, so you might just want to go to the link, but it is samanthavandersluis.com. And then I'm very active on Twitter as well with the handle @sam_vandersluis.
Amazing. Sam, it's been a pleasure. And as always, if you're watching this and you aren't already, please do like this video, because it does really help us at Robot Republic, and it's also really lovely to see people engaging with all this content, especially when I get to speak to amazing people like Sam here. Please do also make sure that you subscribe to Robot Republic and hit that bell icon for notifications on all of our new content when it comes out. Sam, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome, and we will see you next time, guys. Bye.